The Portfolio Composer, episode 228.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach, Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of the Portfolio Composer.
I think if you have a limited amount of time and you have stuff that you just know you hate doing, but you have a friend or someone that's really good at it, invest that money, yes, but also treat it as an investment for your business. And it's okay to kind of, maybe spend a little bit more to free up your time to do the things that you're better at doing in an efficient way. For me, having someone do all the back end, he could do something in 1 second that would have taken me hours of Googling. That freed my schedule up to do the stuff like the score, engraving, cleaning that up, writing product description, stuff that, I really had to do. So that when I did finally sit down, I had a very clear, okay, today I'm going to do this.
This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Just released, Dorico Pro 3 is a major new version with game-changing advances in note input, notation, and engraving. Also available from Steinberg is Dorico Elements, an entry-level application that packs all of the essential power of Dorico Pro into a simple, streamlined package that is ideal for those getting started. Find out more later in the show. Welcome to episode 228 of the Portfolio Composer podcast. I'm your host, your coach, and your teacher, Garrett Hope, and I'm thrilled that you're listening to this podcast. The last episode we released was the retrospective from the last year because we're just celebrating our 5th anniversary as the podcast. And I really encourage you to go back and listen to the highlights from the last year from the 10 most popular, most downloaded episodes. And it might be possible that this episode will be among the list that we do next February when we celebrate the 6th anniversary. I'm happy to introduce you to composer Amy Gordon. She not only composes, but arranges, is a singer-songwriter and a vocalist living in LA. She is an active choral composer, including being the composer in residence for Nova Vocal Ensemble, and she's been commissioned to write and arrange pieces by a wide variety of choral ensembles. Her music has been described as melodic and accessible, yet with surprising harmonic twists. Amy has recently done a lot of work building her website and building her business, and she's an inspiration for us all. There's a lot you can get out of this. Enjoy. Hi, Amy.
Hello, Garrett.
I'm so glad to have you on the podcast today.
I'm really excited to be on.
Yeah. Now, I first heard your name because we are both music spoke composers, and as Kurt Connect and Jennifer were promoting our music, and then I believe I probably sang through at least one of your pieces at an ACDA convention in a reading packet. So it's nice to actually connect with another music spoke composer.
Yes, I know. It kind of feels like a family.
Yeah, it really does. So one of the things I'm asking everyone who comes on the podcast lately is, what is your portfolio? Now, I know that you're a listener to the podcast, but for those who are listening themselves right now and they might be new to the podcast, the idea is that we have to have a diversified portfolio of income-producing activities, and the term comes from the business and investment world. And so we don't just do one thing. I mean, maybe if we're very fortunate, but we really want to set up multiple things so we're not relying on just one. So, Amy, what is in your portfolio?
So I think like most composers I know, I have a mix of a lot of things. I teach at a contemporary music college. I teach for their bachelor composition program, and I'm lucky to get to teach theory and composition and songwriting as well, because I actually got my start as a songwriter. So I'm actually developing some lyric writing courses for them. And so I feel like it's kind of a nice mix of both my pop world and my classical composition world. I also teach private piano lessons in the area, but I also am a freelance composer. I specialize in choral music, but I also do film scoring. I'm also a choral singer, and I sing as part of C3LA, the Contemporary Choral Collective of Los Angeles, which specializes in new music, and I'm on the board. So I think probably between all that, mostly teaching, freelance composing, and I do work on commission, and as well as we'll talk about later, really going into selling my sheet music as kind of like an independent publisher. And so, yeah, that's kind of a mix of everything. And then a few odds and ends thrown in there, cool things that come up randomly. So.
Sure, of course. So tell me more about moving from songwriting to composing, and how do you think of them as different things?
So yeah, I got my start in songwriting, as probably a lot of us. I was like 10. I had this really ancient Casio synthesizer. I was obsessed with the sounds that it had. And by the time I was 12, I had begged my parents to let me clear out half my closet and had put up a very state-of-the-art recording studio with a 4-track tape recorder and a synthesizer that had floppy disk. But for the time, that was pretty cool. Yeah, and I just kept writing, and my parents have been awesome and really supportive. And then I think around age of 17, it was the Harry Potter score by John Williams that something kind of clicked that I could do instrumental music as well. And so that really sparked my very more serious pivot towards wanting to do composition as a career. And then I decided to go to school for composition. And then I kind of I don't want to say lucked into the choral world, but I kind of took stock of right after grad school, what was I doing? This was maybe 6 years ago. What seemed to be going really well? And I had just asked to be composer in residence for Nova Vocal Ensemble. And I was singing in the choir, and I just realized I really loved that world. I felt like now that I kind of think about it, it's not really a surprise to me that I like choral music, because it's kind of like the pop songwriting world of the classical music world.
Mm-hmm.
I get to deal with text, I get to deal with melody, singing, story, all the things that I love about songwriting, but I get to maybe explore some different textures chorally. So I do feel like it's kind of a natural mixture of songwriting and instrumental classical composing.
I kind of fell into the choral world almost by accident. I mean, I've been singing my whole life and in choirs, but one of my very first formal compositions was a choir piece that then ended up winning an award. And then I learned that choirs really do like new music. They want things brand new from composers. How did you start getting the commissions in the choral world?
Well, I think I was, again, I don't want to say lucky, but I was lucky to get composer in residency, where I kind of had a guaranteed commission every Christmas. I was commissioned to arrange a Christmas carol and then kind of do a premiere for the spring concert. And I was also lucky to get 2 song cycle commissions as well. So I kind of had the benefit of having a guaranteed commission every concert, both spring and holiday concert. So that kind of just got me in the mindset of I can have a steady stream of commissions. And then I think just getting kind of addicted to that steady stream, it makes you really very fired up to kind of keep that going. And so my biggest way to get commissions has by far been going to conferences and just meeting people and just becoming friends with people. I think it was on your show, actually. The piece of advice that has changed my life is getting to the coffee date. So, if you can get to become friends with a conductor and get to have coffee and not even worrying about, is this going to turn into a commission? If you're both excited about it, that has by far been the most rewarding commissions and the most sustainable projects.
What do you mean by most rewarding?
Well, I think the projects that I have been most excited about have been because I was able to kind of open up and share a dream of mine or reacted to a dream of someone else's. They had a really, really exciting project that they were excited about. And I was able to get excited. And I feel like once you become friends with someone, that energy of opening up about your visions and your dreams just is more natural. And then it's just really fun to be a part of that, as opposed to maybe just emailing a cold call and never meeting the person. Not that I've had much luck with that route, but yeah, it seems more like I'm just hanging out with my friends and getting to make really important music together.
So let's kind of play this out. I want to hear more about how you're doing this. You go to a conference and you're meeting new people. What is the next thing you do immediately after the conference? And then I guess a follow-up question would be, how many interactions or steps are there between meeting these individuals and then that coffee date?
Oh my gosh. So I think after the conference, I think it's really important to also remember the before the conference. So before the conference, I have made sure to clean up my scores, to edit my recordings, cut out the applause at the end, cut out the dead silence in the beginning. So when somebody does listen to it, they don't have to listen to 3 seconds of silence on SoundCloud before it starts, or listen to a minute of applause at the end of the SoundCloud. So I've kind of done a lot of pre-work. I've started hiring an engraver, Nathaniel Chonarud, who is a fantastic engraver. And, I invest a little bit to have him clean up my scores. So before I go to the conference, I make sure that my web presence is ready and that I have scores that look nice. I might have a great new piece, but if it's not ready to be viewed by conductors, I won't bring it. So I do try to bring a mixture of perusal scores so that, I have an SSA piece if someone only wants that repertoire. So I'm not handing them an SATB. And also just kind of researching maybe who's going. One thing that's been really helpful is just making a post the day before the conference, hey, I'm going to be at this conference. Who wants to hang out? And that just kind of in general, my friends know other people and they introduce everyone. And so there's a lot of work, I think, almost that goes on before the conference, just letting people know you're there, letting people know that you're open to hang out. And then when you do finally meet someone, having stuff to give them. Another thing I found incredibly helpful is a second after they give me a business card or a contact, once we kind of go separate ways, I write down when and where I met them during the conference, because it can kind of just turn into a huge big event and you don't remember where you met people.
Yep.
So it's really nice to look back and say, oh, I met this person during this talk. And so when I follow up, I have something to connect with them about.
Yeah.
Because we were both at that talk for a reason. So we obviously connect on something. So that has been really helpful.
I do the same thing. And in fact, I just write it directly on their business card.
Yes, I do the same thing.
The where we met and then any kind of salient pieces of information. Like if we discussed, I don't know, a common interest or our families, then I'll note that so that when I reach out, we can kind of just continue that connection.
Absolutely. And it's I view it as starting to build a relationship with someone rather than what can you give me kind of thing. And so I am really genuinely interested in if their choir is doing something cool, I want to get them talking about that. Or maybe our mutual love of cats. That seems to be a pretty common theme among composers and conductors. But yeah, I think that does make a difference.
Okay, so you get a business card, you're meeting people, but you've done all this pre-work. And then what?
And then I give myself a few days. I would advise maybe waiting a few days to email people because everyone's usually pretty exhausted after these conferences, especially if they're far away. And then I find maybe midway through the week, I will say that my first conference, people didn't really know who I was. So it was a little harder to get responses. Not that it was bad or anything. People are just really busy. But I've noticed the more conferences I've gone to, the more people kind of respond just because I think they know my name a little bit more or they've seen me at multiple events.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just crafting a very simple, short follow-up email, it was wonderful to meet you. I really enjoyed our talk about so-and-so or X, and then just leaving it at that and not pressuring them to give me a commission on the spot. Here's a contract, please sign. But yeah, and then I think just keeping up the follow through. I have also found that adding them as a Facebook friend or an Instagram friend is really helpful because it just gets you in their mind. It's kind of cool to see what they're up to. And a lot of times I like to go to their concerts too, just kind of see, what their choir is about. Especially if they're doing some cool one-off event, it's cool to be friends with them on Facebook so you can see that and when they share it.
Sure. Yeah. And I think the follow-up might be just as important as the pre-work too, the continued reaching out and connections.
Yeah, for me, I guess I view it as one huge arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's from the beginning to post-commission too. I don't fall off the map post-commission. I make sure, I really do want to be friends with people and I don't want to be oh, okay, we're done with our collaboration. I never talk to you again. I still send follow-up emails after our project is finished. And because I really just want to maintain a relationship and a friendship, Yep.
I work with a lot of composers, as you probably know. And one common frustration that I hear is that composers feel like they're reaching out and trying to build relationships and doing it in an organic way. But then there's not a reciprocated email response. So I want to know, of the emails you send out, even to people that you already have a warm connection with, you just met them at a conference. How many times do you not get a response?
probably 99.
Right.
But the amount of people that I have never met kind of has it's going down the more conferences I go to.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of a thing where I think people just, once they start seeing your face over and over at these conferences, don't get discouraged. Like if you go to one, you don't get any responses. Try going to another one and another one. And I think that it's just the continued presence. But yeah, I mean, if you get one response out of 100, I would say that's a success, and it might not be like commission or anything, but even just somebody saying, oh, cool. Thank you for reaching out. I'll check out your stuff. I think that's something,
Yes. Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Dorico, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorico users so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorico to make their careers happen.
My name is Aaron Perrine, and I'm a composer and a conductor. I have found that it has drastically improved my workflow. I feel like far less editing and engraving necessary with Dorico. It's just so intuitive when you kind of wrap your head around how it handles things, and just understanding how it works globally. Everything is done globally. So now if I ever want to make a change, I have to think about it. Okay, how would I do this, behind the scenes? What really attracted me, and actually my first piece that I wrote in Dorico was a saxophone concerto, and I was attracted to the flows, the way it can handle a multi-movement piece so effortlessly. And I thought, well, and that was maybe a crazy one to jump into. I should have probably done, that was a 20-minute piece. I should have probably done something a little smaller. But that forced me to learn program quite well. So I had to learn many, many, many things in the midst of that one. But there's a great forum, and there's just a lot of support online. Anytime if you have a question, there's people you can reach out to that you'll get answers. It's just time is money. I mean, it's for me, it's that simple. I spend more time writing music and less time fighting with a notation program. I feel like the notation program is just simply it just should be a tool to best express yourself as a composer. If you're actually in the middle of a piece, I feel like it's so much easier in Dorico to make quick changes as far as like inserting music, moving music around, the use of all the filters. I mean, there's just a variety of things that I feel like it frees you up, and you can still, you're not set in stone. You're not committed to a meter. You're not committed to, really anything. Where I feel like other programs I felt kind of locked in, and it was a big undertaking. If I wanted to change, I want this to be a 3/4 bar here, and I want to move this phrase by, a half note or whatever. I feel like in Dorico it's so much more fluid. I would recommend Dorico because I feel like it is the most cutting edge notational program on the market. What is most amazing maybe is just the rate at which this program has grown up and matured over these past few years. And to me, that's the most exciting because there's really no perfect program on the market yet. To me, this is as close as I've found. There's things I'm certainly looking forward to that I know will be in future editions, but just the speed at which they've handled those things is pretty incredible. So I would definitely recommend.
The kind folks at Dorico have set up a special web page so you can go and download a free 30-day trial copy of Dorico. So go and do that. I have been using the program and I'm absolutely in love with it. Go to dorico.com/TPC. Another thing I want to ask you, because you seem to be really building your career by showing up to the places where these conductors are at conferences. And there's a big pushback for a lot of composers because it's expensive. Registration fees can be several $100s. Then you have to get there, and then the hotels are not cheap. So how is that working for you in terms of the expense of this investment and then getting a return on it? Have you gotten to a point where the return is greater than the expenses?
So I am incredibly lucky, and my parents are kind of helping me.
Good.
I'm so grateful to them. I don't like accepting help, but I feel like it is, it's a huge thing for them to be offering, and I'm really grateful to them. But I do understand it's expensive. There's a wonderful California-based conference called ECHO Conference. It's a West Division ACDA, and they actually have a scholarship. I think the applications are due. I forget when they're due, but if you win, you actually get a full ride. It's a 4-day conference. You stay, it's like an overnight summer camp for choral conductors. It's really fun. And so that's one way you could try entering contests, and you could get some of the scholarship to cover your funds. Another way is if you can't afford to go to conferences, one piece of advice I've heard in the film world is just go to the restaurants kind of surrounding the conference, like if it's a local conference, and you'll probably run into a lot of people just by being in the area. So that's kind of like a hack, I guess. I have not done that. But yeah, it is a huge financial investment. A lot of times if you work for a school, they may actually cover your conference costs, or if you have professional development hours. I know I get a little bit of that covered from my college. They want us to do some continuing education requirements. So I'm able to actually like cover a little bit of it that way. So those are some ways maybe to help defray the costs. But maybe if there's like 5 conferences one year, maybe picking one of them.
How would you go about picking which conference?
Like how far it is. The far ones do take a lot more flight. They take a lot more kind of missed work because I do have to plan them around my breaks in my academic calendar. But if they're local, then you might be able to drive. You might be able to carpool with someone, maybe split a hotel, get an Airbnb with a few other people. But yeah, I kind of picked them on National ACDA only comes around once every 2 years. So on the year off, maybe I'll go to Chorus America. But definitely your local ACDA ones, I think, are worth it. And a one-day pass is much cheaper than the whole thing. So if you just want to go for one day, that would probably be very beneficial.
Yeah. I kind of have been building a philosophy, too, of trying to start locally. Because it's a lot easier to have those coffee dates with people that are in your area. So try to find regional or state conferences that are within that driving distance, so it's lower cost. But then you can offer to clinic at these schools and with the ensembles and just try to always be present and helpful in building those relationships.
Absolutely. And I'm not a choral conductor, so I'm coming just as a composer. But if you are a composer and conductor, then, there's even more opportunities to kind of mix things like that.
Yeah. Talk to me about how you're getting your scores out into the world. How are people accessing your music?
Sure. So a lot of times I'm driving them. It's from a meeting at a conference or just bothering people enough until they finally click on something. So as we know each other, I'm on Music Spoke and I have, I think 14 or 15 pieces there. And it's a really great family. And I also had a store on my website that wasn't like very functional. I think I sold like my CD that you could buy through PayPal. But around last year, I think I was kind of realizing that I had a decent amount of music in my catalog and was just kind of thinking that maybe I want to start selling things on my own website. And I've seen a trend among freelance composers of starting to control their web space a little bit more. And I think with there's so many tools out there that make things so much easier. Like I hate Photoshop and I've seen my friends using Canva and it's a wonderful graphic tool. And it takes me 1 minute to do what I would have had to spend 5 hours doing. So I think things have become easier. And so this summer I really hit the ground running with developing my own online sheet music store. So finally, it just launched about a month ago. Pretty much my entire choral catalog is available on my website. I have a fantastic web developer, Patrick Hassani, and he did a great job kind of doing the back end stuff. I had a very specific vision of what I wanted. I wanted everything on one page, graphics for each of the scores, and I wanted perusal scores and recordings all in one place. He did some really great back end stuff so that I don't have to enter a whole lot of information and it just looks beautiful. So I have to give him a huge shout out. But yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing how amazing it is to be able to say my entire choral catalog is at amygordonmusic.com. It's all there. So I don't have to Music Spoke. And some of them will actually have a link to external products. So if you have a piece that's published through a traditional publisher, they are the only ones who are selling it. You can just have a link to purchase it through Hal Leonard, and it will take you to that site. So you're not cross-selling it.
Cool. One of the things that I'm going to start doing is just providing different links because some ensembles or schools are set up with their purchase order process through certain vendors. So it's okay, you can get it from this vendor or this vendor or this vendor, but I'm going to make the most money if you buy it directly from me. So I would prefer you to do that, but I'm happy you're just buying my music. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a full-blown publisher. So the issue is some schools might not be able to purchase through me because I don't get the PO issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there is a drawback to that. But I think things are generally moving in this direction if enough composers start doing it. So we'll see.
And your website is WordPress, right?
Yes, the back end is WordPress, but again, my web developer did a lot of great things, customization. But I'm using also WooCommerce, which is fantastic.
What did you find that was fantastic about WooCommerce as a plugin?
So again, I'm just the caveat, I'm not a web developer. I kind of knew that I tried Wix, I tried Squarespace, and I was dragging things around, and I think I broke it in like 5 seconds. So I'm just like, this is not something that I should be spending my time doing. So I reached out to my friend Patrick, and he again did a wonderful job. But he set it up in a way that I can do all the features I want, but the back end stuff, like the security plugins and stuff, he's kind of taken care of. I just think the end product of WooCommerce just looks really nice. They have just a really nice way to place the picture and the product description. Yeah, I just find that other people who have WooCommerce, it just looks really clean.
It does. I agree. And I see that you're using Issuu to do your score perusal.
Yes. So I am paying a monthly fee for that. The free one has like an ad on it, which I tried and it just really bothered me. So yeah, I mean, I am investing a little bit, which I think is fine in order to have a really nice perusal score. And Issuu is it seems to be like the standard for perusal scores. And I just think it looks really nice. And if you have like the little slightly higher subscription fee, you can pick the color of the background. And so I'm kind of a sucker for those things. Like I love blue. And so anything I can like customize like that, I kind of jump on it. But yeah, it also, kind of decreases just the temptability of just downloading it.
Yes.
You can't download it off Issuu.
Yeah.
So I think for many reasons, it's a good investment.
Yeah, it's definitely one to consider. It's the same thing as having a paid subscription to SoundCloud so you can have multiple tracks on.
Exactly.
Another tool. I laughed when you mentioned the colors because I had just observed that your logo is the same color as your background. So you're definitely coordinating.
Yes.
All the things.
I think that does make a difference, at least to me.
Oh, it does.
I like it when things look really clean.
Yep.
And there have definitely been times where I was tempted to like put something out there that didn't have the color scheme or the final look I wanted. And I waited until I could get it the way I wanted. And I've always been happy and grateful to my past self for waiting until I was happy with it.
Yeah. I actually have created very specific color palettes for my different websites. And whenever I'm adding another thing to it, I'm very careful about what color choices are happening. And when I embed a player or whatever, and the player is a customizable color, I'll put in my hex code and all those things so that it gives one unified branding message and it's really clean.
Yeah. And I think like it's just kind of pleasing when I look at a website and it's like, oh, this is really pleasant to look at. I don't know. It definitely makes me want to just kind of click on stuff.
Yeah. So what has been the most surprising thing for you as you've gone through the process of building your own online store, like legitimately this time?
I think just the amount of tedious work. Mm-hmm. It's really boring. Like, entering product descriptions, entering things into Issuu. I had about 30 pieces in my catalog at this point. So I waited a little bit too long. I think it would have been a lot easier if I did it right away with like 3 pieces, but 30 pieces is just a lot. It might not sound like a lot, but it's to create a perusal score, to create a watermark. There's just a lot of files for everything. So anything I had to do for one score times that by like 30. And it got pushed off by like maybe half a year. Like I was a little bit more optimistic about how long it would take me, but I'm happy that I took it slower. But yeah, there is a lot of tedious work, especially if you have quite a bit in your catalog that you want to put all at once. If you kind of start off early, you can do it like bit by bit, and it won't be like all this huge chunk of work at one time.
Mm-hmm. How did you push through that? I think a lot of people just get discouraged and want to give up.
I asked for help when I knew I needed help. So I knew that I was not a web developer. So I think if you have a limited amount of time and you have stuff that you just know you hate doing, but you have a friend or someone that's really good at it, invest that money. Yes, but also treat it as an investment for your business. And it's okay to kind of, maybe spend a little bit more to free up your time to do the things that you're better at doing in an efficient way. So yeah, for me, having someone do all the back end, just he could do something in 1 second that would have taken me hours of Googling. That freed my schedule up to do the stuff like the score engraving, cleaning that up, writing product description, stuff that, I really had to do, so that when I did finally sit down, I had a very clear, like, okay, today I'm going to do this.
Yeah. There is value to doing that. You need to do the highest level thing you can do and let other people handle everything else.
Absolutely. And I think I just heard you talk the podcast that came out this week about that too. And I really like that.
Oh, yeah. With Lily.
Yes. I love that.
Oh, man. Isn't she fantastic?
She's great. Yeah. Engraving is another thing that I just, I've never, ever not thanked myself for sending a piece to my engraver.
Sure.
Because it just can make it look pretty. I can do things for hours and hours and I just can't get it.
Well, yeah, there's a reason the major publishing houses look good, because they have great engravers. And as an independent self-published composer, you have to be on the same shelf with those scores. You don't want to come across as an amateur.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What is your one piece of advice, Amy, that you could give to someone who's listening to this? Something that they could go and do right now to move their career forward?
I think just starting to get your web presence kind of together. So I teach a lot of composition lessons. And one thing that I really, from day one, is start getting your headshots together, start cleaning up your scores early. So when you do go to make a website, you're not held up at like, oh, I need an image. I don't have any images. Oh no, I have to book a photo shoot. And, and that kind of stuff takes a lot longer than you think. So if you need to get a website up for, maybe you want a competition and you want something, to post that on, having all these materials ready will allow you to just put things live immediately. And so, yeah, I think just kind of getting your materials ready to go so that you have a platform to put things on when you need to.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today that I failed to ask you?
No, I mean, I think I love this podcast and I listen to it every single time it comes out. It accompanies me on my long drives. No, I think we covered a lot. And if anyone wants to get my web developer's info, he's great. I don't know if that's something you can put in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Send me his information and a link and I will include it in the show notes.
Great. As well as my engraver is fantastic as well.
Absolutely. So. I'll do both. Well, it's been so great speaking with you. I'm always inspired by people who are out taking action to actually move their career forward. And you've kind of grabbed the bull by the horns, so to speak, and you're making it happen. And I think that is wonderful. And it's an inspiration for sure.
Thank you so much. And this podcast has actually been one of the impetus for a lot of my mindset changes. So I really have to thank you and your guests. As soon as I started listening to this podcast, I think about 6 months ago, something really started changing in my mindset. And I really want to thank you for putting out this content.
You're welcome, Amy. That means a lot to me. This episode of The Portfolio Composer has been supported by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Whether you're a composer or arranger, a teacher or student, working in music engraving and publishing, or working in producing music for media such as film, TV, and games, Dorico is the tool for you. Dorico comes in 2 versions: Dorico Pro for professionals and Dorico Elements, providing the perfect introduction to the world of scoring. Whichever version you choose, you'll be using software packed full of smart features that produces beautiful results completely automatically, allowing you to get music on the stand more quickly than with any other software. You can bring music into Dorico from your existing software using Music XML or MIDI, and you can try Dorico out completely free of charge for 30 days by downloading a trial version from dorico.com/TPC. Try it today.